The stars stretched endlessly in every direction. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the colony ship Wanderer, watching the blue and white light of hyperspace flow past the windows. Behind her ship, 300 other vessels followed in a long line. Each ship carried families, children, and the last hopes of humanity. Earth was dying. The sun had begun its final expansion, and nothing could stop it. Humanity had built these ships over 50 years, pouring every resource into one desperate plan: find a new home among the stars. Now, after 12 years of travel, they had finally reached a region of space where planets might exist. Sarah was tired. She'd been awake for 30 hours, monitoring their approach to a yellow star that looked promising. Her crew was exhausted too, but they all felt the same electric hope. Maybe, just maybe, they would find a world to call home. The navigation officer, Lieutenant Kim Rodriguez, looked up from her screen. Her dark eyes were wide. "Captain, I'm detecting something. Multiple ships. Very large. They're in formation around the fourth planet." Sarah felt her heart jump. Other ships meant other intelligent life. It meant humanity was not alone in the universe. "How many?" she asked. 73, Captain. And they're huge. Each one is at least 3 times our size." Kim's fingers flew across her controls. "Captain, they're moving. They're coming toward us." Sarah took a deep breath. This was it. First contact. All ships reduce speed. Power down weapons. Send the friendship signal on all frequencies. Let's show them we come in peace. The alien fleet approached quickly. Their ships were beautiful in a strange way, all smooth curves and gleaming metal that seemed to shimmer with purple and gold light. They moved with perfect coordination, surrounding the human fleet in a loose sphere. Then a voice came through the speakers. It was translated by their computer, but Sarah could hear the pride and arrogance in it even through the mechanical tone. "Unknown vessels, you have entered the sovereign space of the Galactic Empire. I am Commander Zaltheron of the Imperial Guard. You will power down your engines and prepare for boarding. Resistance will result in your immediate destruction." Sarah looked at her crew. They looked back at her with fear and uncertainty. They had come so far. They had nowhere else to go. She pressed the communication button. "Commander Zaltheron, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Human Colony Fleet. We mean no harm. We are refugees seeking a new home. Our world is dying. We didn't know this space belonged to anyone. We apologize for the intrusion." There was a long silence. Then Zaltheron spoke again, and this time there was curiosity in his voice. "Humans, we have no record of your species. Where do you come from?" "From a star system you probably call Sector 447b. We call it Sol. Our planet was Earth." Another pause. "That is a forbidden sector. It has been empty for 10,000 years. How did your species develop there?" Now the commander's voice held suspicion. Sarah frowned. "Forbidden sector? 10,000 years? What did that mean?" "I don't understand. We've been there for millions of years. We evolved there. It's our home." "That is impossible," Zaltheron said flatly. "But we will investigate. You will comply with our inspection. Send no more than 5 of your people to our flagship. We will examine you and decide what to do with you." Sarah made the decision quickly. "Understood. I'll come myself with 4 others. Please don't harm my people. If you cooperate, they will not be touched. But know this, human. The Galactic Empire has ruled for 100,000 years. We have 47 species under our guidance. You are now the 48th. You will obey our laws, accept our wisdom, and worship the progenitors who created all civilization. This is not a choice. This is reality." Sarah felt anger rise in her chest, but she pushed it down. "Not now, later maybe, but not now. We'll come aboard, Commander." 2 hours later, Sarah and her team stepped through the airlock onto the Imperial flagship. The interior was massive and beautiful. The walls were made of something that looked like crystal but felt solid. Lights floated in the air without any visible source. Everything spoke of ancient power and wealth. Commander Zaltheron met them in a great hall. He was tall, nearly 8 feet, with blue-gray skin and 4 arms. His eyes were large and golden. He wore armor that seemed to be made of liquid metal, flowing and reforming constantly. Behind him stood guards of different species, all armed, all watching. "Captain Chen," he said, his voice now coming directly from a translator device on his chest. "You and your people are unexpected. Our scientists will examine your ship. They will study your technology. If you are truly from the Forbidden Sector, we need to understand how this happened." Sarah stood straight. We'll cooperate. But our people need food and water. We've been traveling for 12 years. Our supplies are running low. We just need a planet where we can live. Zaltheron studied her for a long moment. Perhaps. First we evaluate you. The Imperial scientists boarded the Wanderer the next day. Sarah watched nervously as they examined everything. They were professional and careful, but she could see their expressions change as they worked. Confusion, then surprise, then something that looked like alarm. The head scientist, a being with silver skin and multiple eyes, approached Commander Zaltheron. Sarah was close enough to hear. Commander, this is highly irregular. Their technology is primitive in some ways, yes, but in others. The scientists seemed to struggle for words. They use quantum slip drives. We theorized about such drives 3,000 years ago, but decided they were too dangerous to build. They have biological neural systems integrated with their artificial intelligence. We banned such integration 20,000 years ago. And their redundancy protocols? They build 3 backups for every critical system. 3. We stopped such wasteful practices ages ago. Zaltheron's face darkened. What are you saying? I'm saying these humans developed their technology in complete isolation. They had no guidance from the progenitors, no access to the Empire's knowledge. So they made different choices. Dangerous choices. Innovative choices. The scientist's voice dropped lower. Commander, they're Tier 2. Sarah saw the guard stiffen. She didn't know what Tier 2 meant, but it clearly meant something serious. Zaltheron called Sarah over. His golden eyes were hard. Captain Chen, you and your fleet are classified as dangerous Tier 2. Not because of your weapons, which are primitive, but because of your unpredictability, your innovation. The Empire will need to decide what to do with you. Until then, you will be moved to a quarantine sector. Quarantine? Sarah felt her temper flare. We're not sick. We're not dangerous. We're just looking for a home. You don't understand, Zaltheron said. In 100,000 years, the Empire has achieved stability, order, peace. We follow the wisdom of the progenitors, the ancient ones who ascended beyond physical form. We do not innovate recklessly. We do not take dangerous risks. We do not change what works. He stepped closer. But you come from nowhere. With technology that should not exist, asking questions that should not be asked. You are chaos, Captain. And chaos must be contained, Sarah met his gaze. We didn't come to conquer, Commander. We didn't come to disrupt your empire. We came because we had no choice. Our son was dying. But we're builders. We're survivors. We're not beggars and we're not your subjects. She took a breath. Send us to your quarantine zone. Give us one planet, just one, and we'll prove we can coexist with your empire. Zaltheron was quiet for a long time. Finally, he nodded. Very well. There is a sector we call Ashvale. It is far from our core worlds. No Imperial citizen will go there. It is considered cursed. But there is a world there, an ancient ring world built by the progenitors themselves. If you can survive there, it is yours. Why is it cursed? Sarah asked. Because it is where the progenitors fought their last battle before they ascended to a higher plane of existence. The ruins there are sacred. The dead are many. And strange things happen in that sector. Ships disappear. Equipment fails. Some say the ghosts of the progenitors still walk there. Zaltheron's expression was grim. But if humans are as stubborn as you seem, perhaps you will survive where others fear to go. Sarah looked back at her team. They were scared, but they nodded. They had come too far to turn back now. We'll take it, Sarah said. And so the human fleet was escorted to the Ashvale sector, to a world the Empire feared, to a place where gods had supposedly walked. None of them knew that this decision would change everything. None of them knew that humanity's greatest test was just beginning, and none of them knew that the progenitors hadn't ascended at all. They had run from something that still waited in the dark. The Ashvale sector looked empty when the human fleet arrived. The stars here seemed dimmer somehow, and there was a strange quietness to space itself. Even the background radiation felt wrong to their sensors. But there, orbiting a dying red star, was the ring world. It was enormous. A band of land and metal circling the star, wide enough to hold 100 Earths. Parts of it gleamed in the red light. Other parts were dark and broken. It had been beautiful once. Now it was a ruin. Sarah stood on the observation deck of the Wanderer, looking down at what would be humanity's new home. Behind her, Dr. Marcus Webb cleared his throat. He was their chief scientist, a thin man with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Captain, the scans are incredible. That ring is stable. Whoever built it understood engineering at a level we can barely imagine. There's atmosphere on parts of it. Water. Even plant life, though it's different from Earth plants. And the ruins." His voice was filled with excitement. "There are cities down there. Empty cities. We could learn so much." Sarah turned to him. "Is it safe?" Marcus hesitated. "Safe? I don't know. The radiation is normal. No toxic gases. No obvious dangers. But Captain, something happened here. Something big. Half the ring is damaged. There are impact craters the size of mountains. Whatever war the progenitors fought here, it was brutal." "Then we'll be careful," Sarah said. "Send down the first teams. Find us a location for New Horizon Colony. Somewhere with water, shelter, and enough space for everyone." The first landing parties went down 3 days later. They chose a region near what looked like an ancient port. The buildings were strange, made of materials that seemed to be part metal, part stone, and part something else entirely. They were tall and graceful, with curves that seemed wrong to human eyes but somehow felt right. Marcus led the archaeology team personally. He walked through the silent streets with wonder in his eyes. Everything was preserved perfectly. There were no bodies, no signs of decay. It was like everyone had simply vanished one day. In the center of the city, they found a great plaza. In the middle of the plaza stood a monument covered in writing. Marcus spent hours trying to decipher it. The language was similar to the Imperial language, but older, much older. Finally, late one night, he called Sarah down to the surface. She found him sitting in front of the monument, his portable computer covered with notes. He looked pale. "I've translated it," he said quietly. "Sarah, this isn't a monument. It's a warning." Sarah sat down beside him. "What does it say?" Marcus read from his notes. "We reached too far. We opened the veil. They came through. We cannot stop them. We cannot fight them. We can only seal ourselves away and pray. To whoever finds this, do not seek. Do not dig. Do not wake what sleeps below. Run. Run while you can." He looked up at Sarah. "It's signed by someone called the High Architect, and there's a date. If I'm reading it correctly, this was written about 50,000 years ago." Sarah felt cold. 50,000 years. That means the progenitors were here long before the Empire says they ascended. "That's not all," Marcus said. "I've been examining the damage to the ring. Sarah, this wasn't from a war between civilizations. The weapons that hit this place came from inside. The progenitors were fighting something that came from beneath the surface." "What are you saying?" Marcus stood and pointed to the broken sections of the ring visible in the sky above. "I'm saying the Empire's entire religion is based on a lie. The progenitors didn't ascend to a higher plane. They didn't become gods, they ran. They ran from something they accidentally awakened, and they sealed it below this ring. And Sarah," he turned to her, "I think it's still down there." Sarah wanted to order everyone back to the ships. She wanted to leave this cursed place and never look back. But where would they go? The Empire had given them this world. No other place would take them, and her people needed a home. "Keep researching," she said finally, "but carefully. And Marcus, keep this quiet for now. No need to panic, everyone. Maybe whatever was here is dead after 50,000 years." Over the next 6 months, New Horizon Colony grew. Humanity unpacked their ships and began building homes in the ancient city. They repaired the old buildings, planted crops, and started to make lives for themselves. Children played in streets that had been empty for 50 millennia. Life, human life, returned to the ring world, but Marcus never stopped researching. He and his team explored deeper into the ruins. They found libraries with crystal data storage that still worked. They found laboratories with equipment they couldn't understand. And they found maps. Maps that showed a vast network of tunnels beneath the ring world's surface. One day, Marcus made a discovery that changed everything. In a sealed vault deep underground, he found what looked like a computer terminal. It was still active, powered by some energy source that had lasted 50,000 years. When he activated it, text appeared in the ancient language. It was a journal, the last journal of the High Architect. Marcus read it with growing horror. The journal told a story. The progenitors had been a great civilization, spanning 1,000 worlds. They had advanced technology, wisdom, and power. But they wanted more. They wanted to understand the fundamental nature of reality itself. So they built a machine, a device that could peer into other dimensions, other realities. When they activated it, they found something looking back, something vast and hungry, something that saw their dimension as a garden ready for harvest. They called themselves harvesters. They were machines, but alive. They had consumed 1,000 civilizations in 1,000 dimensions. Now they wanted this one. The harvesters came through the portal the progenitors had opened. The war that followed destroyed half the progenitor civilization. In desperation, the survivors built massive seals, physical and technological barriers to trap the harvesters underground. Then they ran, spreading across the galaxy, abandoning their greatest works and never speaking of what they had done. The journal's final entry was simple. The seals will hold for 100,000 years. Perhaps longer. After that, may whatever gods exist have mercy on whoever lives then. Marcus brought this to Sarah immediately. They sat in her office as rain fell on New Horizons' new buildings. Real rain, from clouds that formed naturally in the Ringworld's atmosphere. How long has it been since the seals were made? Sarah asked. 50,000 years, Marcus said. Give or take a few centuries. So we're safe for another 50,000 years. Maybe. Marcus looked uncomfortable. Sarah, those seals are old. Really old. And we've been digging, mining, building. We're disturbing things that haven't been touched in millennia. Sarah understood. You think we might wake something up? I think we need to be very, very careful. Sarah wanted to tell the Empire. They deserve to know. But would they listen? Or would they just destroy the ring world and everyone on it to keep the secret safe? She made a decision. Keep researching. Find out everything you can about these harvesters. How they think. How they fight. How they're sealed. If there's even a chance they might wake up, I want to be prepared. Marcus nodded and left. Sarah sat alone, looking out at the colony. Thousands of humans living their lives, building homes, having children, all of them sitting on top of a sleeping nightmare. A week later, news came from the Empire. High Archon Vexthar, the supreme leader of the Galactic Council, demanded that all human research in the ruins stop immediately. The sites were sacred. Humanity was disturbing divine mysteries. They must accept the will of the progenitors and cease their investigations. Sarah recorded her response carefully. High Archon, with respect, we cannot stop. We found evidence that the progenitors were not gods. They were people like us. They made mistakes, and those mistakes left dangers that still exist. We're not disturbing mysteries. We're trying to understand threats. If you want us to stop, come here and see what we found. Then decide. The response was swift and cold. No Imperial citizen would set foot in the cursed sector. Human access to Imperial trade routes was cut off. No ships would come. No supplies would be sent. Humanity was alone. Sarah called a colony-wide meeting. She stood before thousands of people and told them the truth. About the harvesters. About the seals. About what might lie beneath them. About the Empire abandoning them. The Empire's gods ran from this place, she said. They were scared. And maybe they had good reason. But we're not running. We can't run. We have nowhere to go. So we're going to do what humans have always done. We're going to learn. We're going to prepare. And if something wakes up down there, we're going to fight. The crowd was silent for a moment. Then someone started clapping. Then another. Then everyone. It wasn't blind optimism. It was determination. It was the same stubbornness that had kept humanity alive through ice ages and wars and the death of their world. Marcus increased his research. Teams worked around the clock, studying the ancient technology, learning the progenitor language, mapping the underground networks. They found defensive systems, weapons, and things they didn't understand yet, but were determined to figure out. And deep below, in the darkness beneath the ring world, something that had been sleeping for 50,000 years stirred. Just a little. Just enough to sense that new life had come. Life that dug. Life that explored. Life that might break the seals. The harvesters began to wake. The mining operation started like any other. Team 7, led by engineer Carlos Martinez, was drilling into the ringworld's lower levels to access rare metals needed for ship repairs. They had checked the ancient maps. They had confirmed the area was marked as safe. They had taken every precaution, but the maps were 50,000 years old. Carlos was supervising when the drill broke through. One moment they were cutting through solid metal. The next, the drill fell into empty space. Alarms started screaming. The drill rig shook violently. "Shut it down!" Carlos shouted. "Emergency stop!" But it was too late. From the hole, something emerged. It was small at first, no bigger than a basketball. It was made of black metal that seemed to absorb light. Geometric patterns covered its surface. And it was alive. The sphere rose into the air. Red lights appeared on its surface, scanning the mining site. Then it split. One sphere became two. Two became four. Four became eight. Carlos grabbed his radio. "Base, this is Team 7. We've broken through into something. Unknown machines are emerging. We need immediate evacuation." Sarah received the call in the middle of a meeting with Marcus. They ran to the command center together. By the time they arrived, the situation had spiraled out of control. "Captain, we're reading massive energy signatures from the mining site," reported Lieutenant Rodriguez. "Whatever came out is multiplying exponentially. Current count is over 500 and growing." Marcus grabbed Sarah's arm. "It's a harvester. We woke one up." Sarah's blood ran cold. "Get everyone away from that site. Sound the colony alert. And get me Admiral Okonkwo." Admiral James Okonkwo had been preparing for this day since they learned about the harvesters. He was a veteran of Earth's last wars, a man who had seen humanity at its worst and best. When Sarah's call came, he was already moving. "All ships to combat status," he ordered. "This is not a drill. We have hostile contact." The harvester spheres continued to multiply. They spread from the mining site like a virus, consuming everything they touched. Metal, stone, equipment, anything they could use to build more of themselves. Within an hour, there were 10,000 of them. Within 2 hours, 100,000. Then they began to form into larger structures. The spheres merged, creating machines the size of buildings. These new forms had weapons. When the first evacuation shuttle tried to leave, the harvesters shot it down. Sarah watched from the command center as the colony descended into chaos. "Send a message to the Empire. Tell them a harvester has awakened. Tell them we need help." The message was sent. The response came quickly. High Archon Vexthar's face appeared on the screen and his expression was one of pure terror. "You fools. You've doomed us all. The silence that follows has awakened." The Archon's composure was completely gone. "The Galactic Council is convening emergency session. We will seal off the entire Ashvale sector. Nothing goes in. Nothing comes out. You're going to abandon us?" Sarah couldn't believe it. "Send your fleet. Help us fight." "Fight?" The Archon laughed, but it was the laugh of a terrified man. "No one fights the harvesters. The progenitors, with all their power, could not defeat them. They could only run. The Imperial fleet will not enter that sector. We will establish a quarantine zone. If the harvesters try to leave, we will destroy them with long-range weapons. But we will not risk our ships. There are 300,000 humans down here," Sarah shouted. "You can't just leave us to die." "I am sorry," Vexthar said. And he actually sounded like he meant it. "But 300,000 is a small price to pay to save 47 species. May your death buy the galaxy time." The screen went black. Sarah stood in silence. Around her, the command center was frozen. Everyone had heard. Everyone knew what it meant. They were on their own. Admiral Okonkwo's voice came through the speakers. "Captain Chen, this is Okonkwo. I heard the transmission. Forget the Empire. We don't need them." "We've survived worse than this, have we?" Sarah asked quietly. "We survived ice ages when we lived in caves," Okonkwo said firmly. "We survived plagues that killed half our population. We survived world wars that nearly destroyed our planet. We survived the death of Earth itself. We're survivors, Captain. That's what humans do. We survive, and when survival means fighting, we fight." Sarah felt something harden inside her. The Admiral was right. Humanity had faced extinction before. They had always found a way. "What do you need?" "Time and data. Get me everything Dr. Webb has learned about these things. Every weakness. Every pattern. And keep the civilians safe. I'll handle the fighting." Marcus was already pulling up his research. "The harvesters are machine intelligence, but they're not like our AI. They think, but differently. They're predictive. They calculate probabilities and choose the most efficient solution. That's their strength. And their weakness?" Okonkwo asked. "Chaos, unpredictability. They don't understand illogical decisions. The progenitors fought them with elegant tactics, perfect formations, calculated strategies. It didn't work because the harvesters could predict everything they did." Marcus looked up. "But humans, we're messy. We do stupid things. We take crazy risks. We don't follow the rules." Okonkwo smiled grimly. "Then let's be unpredictable." The battle for New Horizon began in earnest. The human fleet consisted of only 200 ships, most of them converted colony vessels. They faced a harvester swarm that grew larger by the hour. Okonkwo threw out every rule of space combat. Instead of maintaining formation, ships broke off individually. Instead of using long-range weapons, they charged in close. When a ship's weapons failed, the crew rammed the harvester constructs. When ammunition ran out, they used their ships as bombs. The harvesters didn't know how to respond. Their calculations kept failing. Why would a ship sacrifice itself when retreat was more efficient? Why would humans risk everything on tactics that had low probability of success? Because humans weren't calculating probability. They were fighting for survival. And survival doesn't follow mathematics. On the ground, the battle was just as chaotic. The harvesters had consumed the mining site and were spreading toward the colony. Marcus worked desperately to find a way to stop them. Then he had an idea. They communicate through quantum entanglement, he told Sarah. Every sphere is connected to every other sphere. That's how they coordinate so perfectly. But it's also a vulnerability. If we could introduce noise into that network, corrupt their communication. A virus, Sarah understood.
Can you make one?
Not a virus. Something worse. I'll give them garbage data, random numbers, paradoxes, logic bombs, everything that makes no sense. If I can upload it into their network, it might confuse them long enough for us to destroy the core nodes. Do it, Sarah ordered. Marcus and his team worked for 3 days straight. They created something that wasn't elegant or sophisticated. It was digital chaos, a program that did nothing but generate random, contradictory instructions. It was beautiful in its ugliness. Getting it into the harvester network required someone to physically connect to one of the machines. That someone was Marcus himself. He led a small team into the heart of the occupied zone, carrying the virus on a portable drive. They reached a large harvester construct. Marcus plugged in his drive. The upload took 30 seconds. Those were the longest 30 seconds of his life. When the upload completed, the change was immediate. The harvesters stopped moving. Their perfect coordination fell apart. Some spheres spun in circles. Others crashed into each other. The network was drowning in chaos. Now, Okonkwo shouted. Hit them with everything. The human fleet concentrated fire on the largest constructs. Nuclear weapons, kinetic impactors, plasma charges, everything they had. The confused harvesters couldn't coordinate their defenses. One by one, the major structures fell. Finally, the remaining harvesters retreated. They pulled back into the tunnels, sealing the holes behind them. They weren't destroyed, but they were dormant again, sleeping, waiting. The battle was over. Humanity had won. But the cost was terrible. 70 ships destroyed, 2,000 people dead. Half the colony was damaged, and they knew the harvesters would try again. Sarah stood in the ruins of the mining site. Marcus stood beside her. Both of them were exhausted. We didn't kill them, Marcus said. We just pushed them back. I know, Sarah replied. But we learned something. They can be fought. They can be beaten. The progenitors gave up. We didn't. A message came through from deep space. Not from the Empire, but from smaller species. The ones who had no voice in the Galactic Council. They had heard about the battle. They had heard that humans had fought a harvester and survived. The message was simple. How did you do it? Sarah smiled for the first time in days. She sent back a detailed report. Every tactic, every weapon, every strategy. She shared it all freely, asking nothing in return. Knowledge should be free, she said to Marcus, especially knowledge that saves lives. But deep in space, something else had noticed the battle. A network of machines spread across 12 sectors. They had been dormant for 50,000 years, waiting for the right signal. The signal that said new intelligence had arrived. New civilization was ready for harvest. The attack on one harvester node had awakened the entire network. And now, slowly but inevitably, the true invasion was beginning. The battle for New Horizon had been just the first taste. The real war was coming. The news of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within weeks, the story was everywhere. A new species, classified as dangerous and unpredictable by the Empire, had done what the mighty progenitors could not. They had fought a harvester and won. For the smaller species, the ones who lived under imperial rule without much say in their own fate, the story was inspiring. For the first time in 100,000 years, Someone had challenged the old order and survived. Sarah received hundreds of messages, trade offers, alliance proposals, requests for human advisors. Species she had never heard of wanted to learn humanity's tactics, study their technology, understand their way of thinking. The Empire was not pleased. High Archon Vexthar called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. The meeting was broadcast across all Imperial channels. Sarah watched it from New Horizon, along with thousands of colonists who had gathered to see what would happen. The human situation must be contained, Vexthar announced. They have proven themselves reckless and dangerous. They disturbed sacred sites. They awakened an ancient threat, and now they spread their chaotic methods to other species. This cannot be allowed. One of the council members, a being from a species called the Krell, spoke up. But High Archon, they also survived. They defeated the Harvester when we thought it impossible. Should we not learn from this? Learn? Vexthar's voice was sharp. Learn to be reckless? Learn to question the wisdom of the progenitors? The humans got lucky, nothing more. Their methods are unstable. Their technology is dangerous. If other species adopt their ways, the Empire will fall into chaos. Another voice joined in, younger, from a species Sarah didn't recognize. Perhaps the Empire needs some chaos. We have been stable for 100,000 years, yes, but we have also been stagnant. We build nothing new. We discover nothing new. We simply maintain what the progenitors left us. Is that truly wisdom or is it fear? The council erupted in argument. Sarah could see that something fundamental was breaking. The Empire's unity was cracking. Vexithar tried to restore order. Silence. I have made a decision. The human colony will be destroyed. A surgical strike will eliminate this threat before it spreads further. The fleet will launch immediately. Sarah felt her blood run cold. Marcus, get me a transmission line to the Empire. Now. But before she could speak, something unexpected happened. The Krell representative stood. Then another species stood. Then another. Within moments, half the council was on their feet. We refuse, the Krell said simply. We will not allow the destruction of New Horizon. We will not allow the murder of 300,000 beings for the crime of survival. If you send your fleet, High Archon, you will find our fleets in the way. Vexthar looked stunned. In 100,000 years of Imperial history, no species had ever directly refused an Archon's command. This is treason. You will be removed from the Council. Your worlds will face sanctions. Then we leave, the Krell replied. We withdraw from the Empire. We will form our own alliance. With the humans. With anyone who believes that survival is more important than tradition. More species joined. 23 of the 47 member species declared independence from the Empire that day. The Galactic Council collapsed in chaos. Sarah watched in shock. What have we done? She whispered. Changed everything. Marcus answered. For better or worse, we've changed everything. The assassination fleet still came. 20 Imperial warships, each one powerful enough to destroy a planet. But they found something waiting for them at the border of the Ashvale sector. A mixed fleet of human Krell and other species ships. Outnumbered and facing unified opposition, the Imperial fleet withdrew without firing a shot. That was the day the Concordat of Free Worlds was born. Not an empire, but an alliance of equals. Species working together not because they were forced to, but because they chose to. Sarah was invited to speak at the first Concordat meeting. She stood before representatives of 23 species and felt the weight of history on her shoulders. We never wanted to lead a revolution, she said. We just wanted a home. But I've learned something in the past year. The progenitors were powerful, yes. They were advanced, but they were also afraid. They ran from challenges. They hid behind their technology. And when real danger came, they couldn't handle it. She paused, looking at each representative. Humanity has struggled since the beginning. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us in 1,000 ways. Ice ages, predators, diseases, asteroids, we nearly went extinct a dozen times. But every time we adapted. We learned. We survived. Not because we were the strongest or the smartest, but because we never gave up. That's what we can teach you. Not weapons, not technology, but the philosophy of survival. Be flexible. Be creative. Work together. And never ever stop trying. The speech was well received. Human academies opened on 23 worlds. They didn't teach technology or tactics. They taught something harder to define. A way of thinking. A willingness to try new things, a refusal to accept that any problem was unsolvable. The Empire watched this with growing alarm. Their monopoly on knowledge was breaking. Their authority was fading. Species that had followed imperial law for millennia were now questioning everything. But something far worse was happening, and no one noticed until it was almost too late. Deep space monitoring stations began reporting anomalies. Strange energy readings in 12 different sectors. At first they were dismissed as sensor errors. Then ships started disappearing. Not destroyed, just gone. No distress calls, no debris. Just empty space where ships used to be. Marcus was the first to understand. He had been monitoring the harvester activity beneath New Horizon. The machines were restless, testing the seals, looking for weak points. But they weren't just local anymore. They were communicating with something far away. He burst into Sarah's office one night, his face pale. "Captain, we made a terrible mistake. When we attacked that first harvester node, we thought we were defending ourselves, but we were actually sending a signal. We rang a bell, and now the whole network knows we're here." Sarah's heart sank. "How many?" "The disappearing ships? They're not disappearing. They're being harvested, taken apart for raw materials. The harvesters are building. Sarah, there are thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands. All across the galaxy in hidden places, dormant nodes are waking up. When will they attack?" Marcus pulled up a projection. It showed red dots spreading across a map of the galaxy. "Based on their growth rate and build speed, I estimate they'll be ready for a coordinated attack in 6 months. When they come, it won't be a single harvester. It'll be a fleet designed to consume entire civilizations." Sarah sat down heavily. "The Empire.
We need to warn them. They won't listen.
They hate us now. They blame us for everything that's gone wrong." "Then we'll make them listen," Sarah said. She stood up, her exhaustion replaced by determination. "Call a meeting of the Concordat. Emergency session. And send a message to Vexthar. Tell him I want to speak to the Galactic Council. Tell him it's about the survival of every living being in this galaxy." The message was sent. For 3 days there was no response. Sarah thought they would be ignored. Then surprisingly, Vexthar replied, "A single line. The Council will hear you. But only you. Come to the Imperial capital alone." It was obviously a trap. Marcus argued against it. Admiral Okonkwo refused to let her go. But Sarah knew she had no choice. If the Empire didn't prepare, if all of galactic civilization didn't unite, the harvesters would win. "I'm going," she said firmly. "The progenitors ran from this fight. The Empire wants to hide from it. But we can't run anymore. We can't hide. We have to face it, all of us together, or we all die separately." She took a small ship, just her and a pilot, and traveled to the heart of the Empire. The Imperial capital was a massive station orbiting a blue giant star. It was beautiful and ancient, a monument to 100,000 years of civilization. Sarah was escorted to the council chamber under heavy guard. The chamber was enormous, with seats for all 47 member species. But now only 24 seats were filled. The others stood empty, a reminder of the Empire's fracture. Vexthar sat on his throne, looking older and more tired than Sarah remembered. "Captain Chen, you have torn my empire apart. You have brought chaos where there was order. You have questioned truths that stood for 100,000 years. Tell me why I should not have you executed where you stand." Sarah met his gaze without flinching, "Because in 6 months none of this will matter. Your empire, my concordat. Your laws, my chaos. The harvesters are coming, all of them. In numbers that will make our first battle look like a small argument. And they won't distinguish between empire and concordat. They'll consume us all." She activated a holographic display showing Marcus's projections. The council members gasped as they saw the scale of the threat. Thousands of red dots all converging on inhabited space. "This is what your progenitors ran from," Sarah said. "This is what they were too afraid to face. They thought they could hide. They thought if they sealed the harvesters away, the problem would just go away. But it didn't, it just waited. And now it's our problem, our generation, our fight." Vexthar stared at the display. For a long moment he said nothing. Then quietly, "What do you propose?" Sarah took a deep breath. "Alliance, real alliance. Not the Empire's version, where one species rules and others obey, but true cooperation. The Empire has the largest fleet in the galaxy. The Concordat has learned how to fight harvesters. Together we might have a chance. Apart, we're all dead. You ask us to work with those who betrayed us, Vexthar said. I'm asking you to survive, Sarah replied. Pride is a luxury we can't afford anymore. The progenitors had pride. It killed them. Don't make the same mistake. The chamber was silent. Every eye was on Vexthar. The High Archon sat on his ancient throne, the weight of 100,000 years of history pressing down on him. Finally, slowly, he stood. The Empire accepts your terms. We will fight together. As equals. He looked directly at Sarah. But know this, human. If we survive this, there will be a reckoning. The galaxy will have to decide what kind of civilization it wants to be. Your chaos or our order. But that is a problem for tomorrow. Today we face extinction. And against extinction, even old enemies must become allies. Sarah felt relief wash over her. Thank you, High Archon. Now let's get to work. We have 6 months to prepare for the fight of our lives. And across the galaxy, as preparations began, the Harvester fleet continued to grow. Ancient machines waking from ancient sleep, building, multiplying, preparing. They had waited 50,000 years. They could wait 6 more months. And then the harvest would begin. The Harvester fleet appeared exactly 6 months later, just as Marcus had predicted. They came from 12 different directions at once, converging on the heart of galactic civilization. 10,000 ships, each one built to crack planets and consume everything in its path. The Allied fleet was ready. Empire ships and concordant vessels flying side by side. 100,000 warships, the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Admiral Okonkwo commanded the combined forces from his flagship. Next to him stood Imperial Admiral Kreshitar, a being with silver skin and 6 arms who had fought in the Empire's wars for 300 years. Admiral, Kreshitar said, studying the tactical display, the Harvesters outnumber us significantly. Our fleet is larger, but their ships are more powerful. In a conventional battle, we will lose. Okonkwo smiled grimly. Good thing we're not fighting conventionally then. Captain Chen, are you ready? Sarah's voice came through from New Horizon. Ready, Admiral. Broadcasting the protocol now. Over the past 6 months, humanity had shared everything they learned about fighting Harvesters, but more importantly, they had shared a philosophy. The Terran Protocol, they called it. Not a set of rigid tactics, but a way of thinking. Be unpredictable. Use what the enemy doesn't expect. Sacrifice when necessary. Cooperate without hesitation. Never follow the rules. The Imperial forces had resisted at first. Their traditions were ancient and honored. But Vexthar had made it clear, adapt or die. Slowly, reluctantly, the Empire's military had learned to think like humans, to embrace chaos, to take risks. Now they would see if it was enough. The Harvester fleet approached in perfect formation. Their movements were coordinated with mathematical precision. Every ship in exactly the right place. Every weapon charged and ready. They were beautiful in their terrible efficiency. All ships, Okonkwo commanded, engage at will. Remember the protocol. There is no formation. There is no retreat. There is only survival. Make them fear chaos. Show them what life looks like when it refuses to die. The Allied fleet charged forward, not in neat lines but in wild, unpredictable patterns. Ships broke off individually or in small groups. Some went high. Some went low. Some charged straight ahead while others circled around. The formation looked like madness. The Harvesters tried to respond. Their predictive algorithms calculated the most efficient response to every movement. But the Allied ships kept changing tactics. A ship would charge, then suddenly veer away. Another would power down its weapons, making itself look vulnerable, then explode with nuclear fury when the Harvesters approached. The battle became chaos. Not the organized chaos of human tactics, but true, wild, unpredictable chaos. And in that chaos, something incredible happened. Species that had never worked together found themselves coordinating without orders. A human ship running out of ammunition was covered by an Imperial cruiser. A Krell fighter squadron sacrificed themselves to save an Empire colony transport. The Harvesters had faced countless civilizations. They had consumed thousands of worlds. But they had never faced anything like this. Life that refused to follow logic. Life that chose death over efficiency. Life that worked together not because it was programmed to, but because it chose to. But the Harvesters were learning. That was their true danger. With each encounter, they adapted. They began to predict the unpredictable. Their algorithms evolved in real time, finding patterns in the chaos. Admiral, we're losing the advantage, Kreshtar reported. They're adapting too quickly. In another hour, they'll have us figured out. Okonkwo had expected this. Then we don't give them an hour. Marcus, are you ready? From New Horizon, Marcus Webb sat in a modified ship. Around him were 50 volunteers, scientists and programmers from a dozen different species. They had spent 6 months building something terrible and desperate. A weapon that shouldn't exist. A weapon the progenitors would never have built because it was too dangerous, too unpredictable, too alive. Ready, Admiral, Marcus said. God forgive us for what we're about to do. They called it the logic bomb. Not a virus this time, but something worse. An idea. A thought so paradoxical, so fundamentally impossible, that it would break any machine intelligence that tried to process it. The progenitors had theorized about such weapons but never built them. They were too afraid of what might happen. Humanity was desperate enough to try. Marcus's ship charged toward the center of the Harvester fleet, 50 volunteers knowing they wouldn't come back. They reached the hub mind, the central intelligence coordinating all 10,000 Harvester ships. Marcus uploaded the weapon directly into its core. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Harvesters simply stopped. Every ship, every weapon, everything frozen as their collective intelligence tried to process the impossible. Marcus's final transmission came through clearly. Tell Sarah we did it. Tell her that humans didn't come to this galaxy to replace gods. We came to prove you don't need them. We came to show that ordinary life, messy and chaotic and imperfect, is stronger than any machine. Tell her. His voice broke. Tell her it was an honor. The hub mind exploded. The logic bomb had worked, but at a terrible cost. The explosion took Marcus's ship and everything within a light second. But it also severed the Harvester network. 10,000 ships suddenly cut off from their collective intelligence. Now, Okonkwo roared. Hit them with everything! Don't give them time to reorganize. The Allied fleet poured fire into the confused Harvesters. Nuclear weapons, kinetic impactors, energy beams, everything they had. The Harvester ships, without their central coordination, fell one by one. The battle lasted 3 more hours. By the end, the Harvester fleet was destroyed. Not a single ship escaped. But the cost was terrible. 70% of the Allied fleet was gone. Millions of people dead. Entire worlds damaged in the fighting. Sarah sat in the command center on New Horizon, listening to the casualty reports. Marcus was gone. 2,000 other humans. Tens of thousands from other species, all dead. All sacrificed to save the galaxy. Admiral Okonkwo's tired face appeared on her screen. Captain Chen, the Harvesters are defeated. All nodes across the galaxy are going dormant. We won. At what cost? Sarah asked quietly. The only cost that matters. Survival. Okonkwo paused. Marcus was right, you know. About everything. We didn't need gods. We just needed the courage to fight our own battles. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy began to rebuild. The Galactic Empire dissolved. Not by force, but by choice. After fighting together as equals, no species wanted to return to the old hierarchy. The Concordat of Free Worlds became the foundation for something new. A true alliance of independent species working together because they chose to, not because they were forced to. Vexthar came to New Horizon personally. The former High Archon looked older, tired but somehow more alive than he had been. He met Sarah at the memorial that had been built for the fallen. I spent my entire life serving the Empire, he said, looking at the names carved in stone, thousands of names from dozens of species. I believed in the wisdom of the progenitors. I believed in order and stability. I thought chaos was the enemy. And now? Sarah asked. Now I understand. The progenitors failed because they wanted perfection. They wanted to control everything. When they faced something they couldn't control, they ran. But you humans, you're imperfect. You're chaotic. You make mistakes. And somehow that makes you stronger, because you're not afraid to fail. You're not afraid to try. Sarah smiled sadly. We're afraid all the time. We're just more afraid of not trying. Vexthar nodded. I am stepping down as Archon. The title means nothing now anyway, but before I do I want to say something. The Empire was wrong. I was wrong. We should have welcomed you. We should have learned from you. We should have understood that new ideas aren't threats. They're opportunities. It's not too late, Sarah said. We're all learning together now. Human academies spread across the galaxy. But they didn't teach human superiority. They taught human philosophy. Question everything. Try new things. Work together. Never give up. Species that had been stagnant for millennia began to innovate again. New technologies emerged. New art, new ideas. The galaxy was changing. Not becoming human, but becoming alive again. Vibrant. Diverse. Chaotic in the best possible way. On New Horizon, the colony grew. The ancient progenitor city was now filled with life from dozens of species. Human children played with Krell younglings. Imperial engineers worked alongside Concordat scientists. The boundaries between species began to blur. Sarah stood at the memorial one last time before stepping down as colony administrator. She was old now, ready to rest, ready to let the next generation take over. She placed her hand on Marcus's name carved in stone alongside so many others. "We did it, Marcus," she whispered. "We found a home, not just for humans, for everyone." A group of children ran past her laughing. Human, Krell, Imperial, and species she didn't even recognize. They were playing some game that probably made no sense to adults. They were friends despite their differences. Because of their differences. That was the real victory. Not defeating the harvesters, not ending the empire, but creating something new, something better. A galaxy where species worked together not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Where diversity was celebrated, not feared. Where new ideas were welcomed, not suppressed. The inscription on the memorial said it all. Words that Marcus had suggested before he died. Words that became the motto of the new Concordat. Gods fell here. People rose. Sarah smiled and turned away from the memorial. The future was calling. A future where no one needed gods anymore. Where ordinary beings working together could accomplish the impossible. Where survival wasn't about perfection or power, but about cooperation and determination. Humanity hadn't come to the galaxy to replace gods. They had come to prove that gods were never necessary in the first place. That ordinary life, in all its messy, chaotic, imperfect glory, was more than enough. And as Sarah walked through the streets of New Horizon, surrounded by the sounds of 1,000 species building a new future together, she knew that Marcus had been right. They had found something better than divinity. They had found unity. They had found hope. They had found home. The progenitors had run when faced with extinction. The empire had hidden behind tradition and fear. But humanity had faced the darkness and refused to blink. And in doing so, they had shown the entire galaxy that the real power wasn't in being gods. It was in being alive, in being together, in never giving up. The galaxy would never be perfect. There would be more challenges, more conflicts, more threats. But now, at least, everyone faced them together. Not as subjects and rulers, not as gods and mortals, but as equals, as friends, as survivors, and that was more than enough.